Hi. Welcome to Reading the Revolution. My name is Marielis, and we are reading Neocolonialism by Nkrumah. And we will start the stream by going through our notes of what we have read up to this point. And then we will start the reading for the day. So welcome, everyone. And we will get started. But before we get started, I have a smudge on my glasses that I have to fix. So give me one moment. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and just get right to it. We have a lot to go. We read quite a bit. We're now on chapter 8. So I have gone through the notes and highlighted just a little bit. But again, you guys can always get the notes from the Discord channel. And you can get the link to the Discord when you go to the my home Twitch page. Okay, so let's get started. Give me one moment. Oh, today is a rocky start. Sorry. Okay. All right, let's go through the notes. Okay, so Neocolonialism by Kwame Nkrumah. And again, he helped Ghana get their independence, and he was the first president. He mentions in the intro how bad neocolonialism is in comparison with its predecessor of imperialism and colonialism, because it penetrates into finance, in policing, military pretenses, and it implants itself into the politics. But it's so much worse than that when you go into the details. The book is basically used in Africa as an example of neocolonialism. And here we see that Africa has not grown at all since the book was published. Hey, welcome back. It's good that you came just now because I had such a rocky first 3 minutes. All right. The obstacles of economic progress is chapter 3. Basically, there's 3 main things that he mentions. They were divided into small countries, landmasses during their colonialism, imperialism, first portion of all of this. Then you have them not having enough capital to be able to get themselves to the next stage. And then you have the monopolies that are starting to grow. So they have to kind of fight all these different things. And the monopolies are infiltrating themselves into every aspect of these developing countries' infrastructure. Then we move to chapter 4, imperialism. Lenin said that imperialism is the highest stage of capitalism. Here we're talking about that, but with its new face of financial imperialism. So in this chapter, we go into a lot of details. We look into the growth of the U.S. financial domination, and everywhere, and where it takes us now. We actually even analyze where it is currently. You can go to the notes for that. And then we talk about how they infiltrate the culture and the education of the territories. We go into chapter 5, where we're talking about the monopoly, capitalism, and the American dollar. Again, a lot of details here, but one thing that they definitely don't forget to do is to do their propaganda, make sure that the African nations and everybody actually believes and cherishes the capitalist system that they are so intent on building into this monster that it is today, actually. They do industry monopolies as well. So they buy up all the stuff. They control every aspect of the production system, and they fix prices. They have the financial monopoly. So the banks are basically working together. Kwame details that you have to understand behind the scenes. So now we have the media propaganda where they don't actually tell you the full story of what is actually happening. The banks and the companies are basically owning everything in Africa, making it seem like is a good thing, especially for the Western citizens. And the monopolies are eating up, the financial monopolies are eating up the capitalist monopolies, creating just bigger monsters. Chapter 7 goes into primary resources and foreign interests. So in this chapter, we go into the actual resources and how they're building those relationships and what they're doing. They call it harmonized exploitation with the African countries, basically just paying off people, putting new people into power, etc. These are other ways. These are the ways that they need the resources. They stockpile for Cold War. They have other needs as well within their productions, especially when they decide to own all of the different aspects of a specific raw material, where they own the raw material, the process of whatever it is that they're making with that raw material, and also ancillary products as well. So those are what I call opportunities for the African nations to have leverage, which they did not use, by the way. Then we have, okay, so here we've left off. This is what we read last time. So when I'm going into what we read last time, I actually go into details. So here I'm just going to start to read some of this and just input whatever I remember from the reading, if it's applicable. So Gabon was one that we focused on in this chapter as being if having an abundance in resources. A French company was created solely to produce steel for Western Europe, and it was owned by various steel companies, French, Dutch, Belgian, and French mining company, and an Italian car company, and a French bank, and an Italian. I'm sorry, I already said Italian car company twice. Yeah. So basically, a bunch of companies are in on it, and their focus is getting low-cost electricity. And then here we go into the details of what having these low costs produces for these, syndicates of companies, these groups of capitalistic companies. So an example is Fiat, which is the car company. It's probably why I mentioned it twice. I had it in mind. It owned manufacturing in different industries. It was focusing on armaments during World War II, which led to a lot of growth for them, a lot of growth into the industries. It then opened up cement, camera, film manufacturing, hotels, even the nightlife in Paris they had a monopoly on. Then it went to hydroelectrical dams in Africa. So now we're back to Africa, controlling some of their infrastructure there. Again, this is an example of these things is something that is happening with a lot of different companies at the time. Then you have them going into oil and shipping companies. Then you have them with an international group of companies going into aircrafts. And finally, the largest Italian newspaper, La Stampa, to clean up their image. So now you understand why a lot of these billionaires and billionaire companies are owning a lot of our communication these days. It's this. This is a process that they didn't make up. This is something that they've been doing for many, many years. This is why you can't just assume that you have not been brainwashed and propagandized, because I guarantee you have. These companies also use Africa. I don't know what this plus one thing for. Example, a company financier de Suez, which is a French company, was having a difficult time with the Suez Canal being taken over by the Egyptian government, which is their rightful owners. I just made sure to point out, and were put under pressure by their shareholders. But no need to worry. They made some quick profits going into the Sahara oil and African primary materials. So sometimes just to kind of balance out their profits, they're just like, okay, let's go to that third world continent or whatever. Let's go exploit. And that way we can keep our shareholders happy. Okay, and then I did a little bit of research on Gabon because I was like, man, this country has so many resources. They were already noticing all of the amazing resources that it has. Where is Gabon today? Gabon has made some strides. So here we have warning a French company, that they need to, that they have to, he told them they have until 2029 to stop simply digging up raw manganese and shipping it out and instead begin processing inside of Gabon. So that means that they have to, now they're going into industry within Gabon, which also helps the country with the taxes, with employment, and et cetera, et cetera. Gabon moves to buy Aramet itself. So this is a parent company that they're looking to buy, or actually buy shares into. So I'll just read it. Beyond the ultimatum, Gabon announced it wants to become a shareholder in Aramet, the French parent company, not just its local subsidiary, Camelog, which is the one we were just talking about. The state already owns 29% of Camelog, but now wants a seat at the table of the parent company in Paris. And what do you think the French says? Well, think about it. So they have a meeting on May 27th. So we will stay on top of that to see what they decided, especially with Macron coming to all of the African countries these days and having these conversation about Pan-Africa and partnership and all this shit. And a lot of people just seeing that as just like rebranding. Let's see what they say when it comes to this parent company decision. They increased their mining budget. That's another internal thing that they did so that they can, okay, let's read the context. The context is important. Gabon's oil reserves are maturing and production is declining, meaning that the government knows oil money is running out and manganese, iron ore, and other minerals must replace it as an economic backbone. So this is just like some moving around of focus because the oil is running out. And then we have Belinga. Okay, so this is bad news here. The iron ore mine starting production. Belinga iron ore deposits, one of Africa's largest untapped iron ore reserves, is about to start producing, but it's going to be owned by Australian companies. So this is not. This is back to the same shit that they've been doing with the neocolonializing stuff. And then a deeper political picture. So just so we know where Gabon is actually and why it's in this position, is because it was it had some who were they? Okay, I'll just read the bold. The August 2023. So they had a political party, Bongo Dynasty. So these bootlickers that basically just did everything French, the French wanted them to do. They were basically kicked out in 2023. And then now we have the general oligarch, Gema, and they are starting to make some of these changes that we've already talked about. But some people are suspicious about, how much they're actually going to be able to change, because a lot of the stuff that they're still doing within the system that the French have created for them. So you can, of course, all of this is in the notes. You can read the details. Again, you can go to the Discord to read the details. So back to chapter 7. We're still talking about the resources. In 1965, they are still finding out more rich Gabon, finding out how rich Gabon is with atomic energy commissions, busy prospecting. This is when they first started doing their business over there. 49% of it is owned by the U.S. The French monopolist group also owned manganese, uranium, and iron ore in other African countries. So this is how big these companies are. And then we talked a little bit about the U.S. Steel Company that also buys from, or basically does business with Gabon, and how big they were made. They in today's world, they're no longer that big. There's been some shifting around because things change in 60 years. But yes, oil was being discovered as well. Phosphate used for food production. U.S. company, biggest producer of phosphates in North America, owns companies in Canada, Mexico, and Western Europe. Statements by the company leaders, partnership bolster our world position in regards to strategic phosphate reserves. Basically, is about controlling the market share of. Okay, so basically, they're just owning, phosphates not just in Africa but in all of these different countries, and their goal is to, again, price fix. The French monopolies group of French companies exploiting those in Africa, ICI and Shell monopolies, the trade in the UK, fixed prices, were investigated, were forced to cut prices, but not to lose the shareholders, the profits. They were used to, they mix phosphate with ammonia. So this is, again, some of the things that happen when they are pushed into a corner. If they don't have access to the minerals, they'll get inventive. And then the people that suffer are obviously the people that are purchasing the resources. So at the end of the day, all of that is to tell you that the only thing that they care about is the profits, the bottom line. Everything that they do to increase that profit, the bottom line. And if Africa allows itself to be used in this process in this very predatory way, then they're going to do that. They're not going to stop themselves. That's why they said is an agreement of exploitation or some shit like that. Africa's cost of agriculture is affected by the cost of fertilizer, even when it comes from their own land. So this is an example of how the cost of fertilizer of phosphate, for example, that is basically extracted from the African country, comes back to the African people when they have to actually do their cropping and all of that. So it is transported. So you have to have the transportation fee back to wherever it's going to be packaged or produced or manufactured or whatever it is. Then you have the packaging cost. Then you have the transportation cost when it comes back. Whatever extra costs for the profits of those companies. Then you need the loans to buy the resources or the packaged goods. And then you have the companies, because they also then own the companies that spray the chemicals to your crops. And then you have to pay them as well. So this is how something that is literally in your backyard gets gets more and more and more cost by all of these different companies that are working together, by the way, finding opportunities for each other, building more companies to continue to exploit. And then eventually it comes back so that you can use it with a crazy-ass markup. Nkrumah ends the chapter by emphasizing to us that this new carving up of Africa is even more deadly than the first because of more concentrated interest and more power and influence over governments and international organizations. So more power, basically. Yeah. So that was that chapter where we went over the resources. And then in chapter 8, we're going into a more very specific empire that he wants to highlight. And in what we read so far, he's doing some comparison works. So what we learn about the Oppenheimer empire right away is that they're basically seen at the time as a king of African mining, but it's so much more than that. Okay, so he says they have their fingers in Southern Africa's industrial and financial structures. So everything, right? Industry and finance. Plus, you have the actual raw materials. Oppenheimer is a director himself. I forget his whole name. It's in the book. So Oppenheimer is a director, chairman, and president of about 70 companies. So he has 70 companies that basically he has some influence over. Some of those have affiliates and subsidiary and associates companies. So then you have these 70 companies, and then you have all the relationships that these 70 companies have. So you have all of these other fingers. So you don't just have control over these, you have control over everything that they have control over. These connections provides them advantages in trade, investment, and banking. So everything. Some of the companies are holding companies with purpose of coordinating activities. So, they have a bunch of holding companies that they just hold other companies that have a specific purpose. So hidden are some of them that it is hard to distinguish the process line. So, there's just so many of them that it's just difficult to understand what's actually happening. Nkrumah states that there has to be an internal organization of this control process to not duplicate efforts and keep the appearance of autonomy. So there is somebody or somebodies that are controlling this movement that are basically making sure that the ownerships and the decisions basically all coincide and whatever. He might not particularly be able to identify the ones for this for Oppenheimer Empire, but there is such thing. He does give an example. We go into it. They also rearrange things from time to time. The reasons that they do that is because they have new acquisition. This is understandable. They abandon the exhausted mines, expansion of companies and alliances, remove competition, streamline structure, avoid paying taxes. So there's a lot of reasons to rearrange, External example of eating the competition. Okay, so this is the example that he gives us. This is an external outside of the Oppenheimer, unless he's going to tie it back in later on in the chapter, but based on what we've read so far. He's talking about this Australian company, Consolidated Goldfields, noticed a competitor in agreement to take over some rutile field companies. So rutile is used for manufacturing titanium. So they noticed there's this company out there that's starting to do some agreements, some stuff, some moving around of some stuff. They basically say, "Oh no, we got to jump in." They let them, okay, whatever. But then they decide to own an even bigger share of another rutile company to still keep their greater market share. This company then forms a holding company in Canada, opened shares to Canadians. So now we're starting to mix shit up. We're starting to muddy it all up, so you don't notice what's happening. Then moved to the U.S. So they didn't actually move to the U.S. The U.S. is another company that they start, and they name it something similar, Goldfields American Corporation. This company took over another company that provides the administration work for a different company, Goldfields Tri-State Zinc. Okay, so now we have, I don't know how many companies we've already gone into. The secretarial company, which is called Fresnillo, transferred 51%. Fresnillo is one of the administration companies, by the way. Transferred 51% of its activities to a Mexican company under the Mexican government. So now we have the Mexican government involved. We have the Canadian people involved. When Tri-State Zinc, 2 mines were coming to their end, so now we have 2 mines in the United States that's coming to an end. They went into agreement with American Zinc in Tennessee, so they just moved into a different company. So that's kind of where we left off. So he's still trying to break it down to us. He's still trying to break it down to us how these, this mixing of all these companies, and how Oppenheimer, for example, which is our example in this specific chapter, is able to have his fingers through all of these. He's painting a picture with a different company that he may have more information on and was able to dig in deeper. But again, we're in this part of the chapter. I'm not sure what's going to happen next. I don't know if he's going to jump in back to the details of Oppenheimer company. I don't know. So let's get back into it. Let's do a little bit of reading, see how much of this we understand, and then we'll go into a video. All right. Okay, so we left off at this zinc company. So they just opened the Tennessee branch, or the Tennessee mining. All right, American zinc operations are closely connected with the mining and reduction of zinc and lead ores in several of the American states. It also has a 10% interest in uranium reduction company and a 50% in American Peru Mining Company, among several other affiliated and jointly owned concerns. So now we have this company has ownership in a couple of other companies. Buell and Engineering Company, the other beneficiary of the Goldfields American Cooperation. Goldfields American Cooperation is the top American version of this whole company or capitalistic system, has been assisted to expand its fabricating facilities by taking over the entire common stock of the Union Boiler and Manufacturing Company. So now that company purchased a bigger company, or common stock in a bigger company. Consolidated Goldfields' interests in the United Kingdom are now grouped under the Goldfield Industrial Holding Ltd, formerly HE Proprietary Ltd, as a wholly owned subsidiary of Goldfields Mining and Industrial Ltd. Its main operations are carried on through its own subsidiaries, Alumask Ltd, Ambuco Ltd, and Metallian Ltd. So now we're in Great Britain, and they have one holding company there, and which has its own it has a couple other companies underneath it. Alumask is a producer of die-cast aluminum casts, notably for the brewing industry. It has lately expanded into the production of aluminum high-pressure bottles for commercial uses. In 1962, Alumac, in the words of Consolidated Chairman, broadened its interest geographically and industrially by the acquisition of an Australian subsidiary, Lawrenson Alumask Holding Ltd. So we're back now in Australia, which is where we began. But this is a subsidiary company that makes aluminum, because of course the raw material is to make aluminum. And now we're back at owning another company in Australia. And 2 United Kingdom subsidiaries, the Non-Ferrous Die Casting Company Ltd and Brass Pressing London Ltd, already well established in non-ferrous die casting and brass pressing. Okay, so they have their own expertise. 2 other UK organizational instruments radiates from the London Directorate. These are Anglo-French Exploration Company and Mining and Metallurgical Agency Ltd. Anglo-French Exploration, a wholly owned subsidiary of Consolidated Goldfields. Okay, so they have a direct a direct relationship with the original company that we talked about, is an investment and financial business holding, amongst others, interests in many of the principal gold mining companies in South Africa. Okay, so now we're in Africa. So now we have a company that has a French company that has a direct relationship with the Australian original company that we were talking about, but that is a financial company that then owns mining companies, gold mining companies in South Africa. So now we've already changed from the raw material. We're now at gold. These interests also cover Northern Rhodesian copper mines, okay, so another one, as well as tin mining companies operating in the United Kingdom, South Africa, and the Far East. Apex Mines Ltd. and Rooiberg Minerals Development Company Ltd. of South Africa and Anglo-Burma Tin Company Ltd. are amongst its principals. Mining and Metallurgical Agency Ltd. was formed to look after the distribution of ores and purchase of supplies, as well as to run shipping, insurance, and general agency business. So now we have companies that are doing some of the insurance stuff, the shipping, some of the other ancillary work that is needed for these raw materials. 50% of its capital is held by Consolidated Goldfields. Okay, so we went into a different company. We went down to some metallurgical agency, and that company is then owned 50% by the original that we were talking about, the Consolidated Goldfields. Goldfields of South Africa Ltd. is the wholly owned subsidiary of Consolidated Goldfields, wholly owned, that is responsible for administrating the operations of the group throughout the whole of South Africa. Okay, so now I see how he's tying in. This is not just a random example. This has to go back to the Oppenheimer group, because now we're in Africa. And we're talking about administration, and now we just made it back to South Africa. Okay. These are of the monumental size. For investment in the South African gold and platinum mines remain the major asset of the Consolidated Goldfields Group and its primary source of income. Okay, so that makes sense, because platinum is what we started with, and now we're at gold, and they make up the majority of their income. This makes sense. At June 30th, 1961, gold mining accounted for 71% of the group's quoted investment, and the chairman assured shareholders that since the end of the Second World War, Consolidated Goldfield has invested capital sums approaching $450 million in the South African gold mines. Exploration has continued in South Africa and Rhodesia. I wonder what it is now. So in the next, tomorrow, we're going to go, I'm going to have fresh research for you about where this whole system is now. I don't think I'm going to be able to go into the details, but I can probably know, who owns a lot of the gold in South Africa. I think that might be the general information that I might be able to pull. And is in close collaboration with the West Witwatersrand Areas Ltd., a company which Consolidated Goldfields floated in 1932. Since then, Witwatersrand has itself become an important South African finance mining company with major holdings in gold mines of the Far West Rand and Orange Free States. Okay, so then we have the Witwatersrand, which is basically an investment finance company that owns a bunch of gold, let's just say. Witwatersrand produced in 1962 gold valued at over $57 million, which was twice the size of its production of 10 years ago. The Harmony Gold Mining Company, Ltd., in which Witwatersrand has a holding of 1.2 million shares through its subsidiary Westwits Investment Ltd., also achieved a record gold output. Okay, so the company that it owns has also done some very, very well. Apart from its interest in the Transvaal and Orange Free State gold and platinum mines, Consolidated Goldfields has substantial holdings in Southwest Africa Company. So now we're going to Southwest and in Rhodesia, in Bancroft Mines Ltd, Nchanga Consolidated Copper Mines in Rhodesia, and Rhodesian Anglo-American Ltd, all falling within the sphere also of Anglo-American cooperation. In Ghana, Consolidated is interested in Konago Gold Mines Ltd, which has a concession of approximately 20 square miles in the Ashanti-Akan district. All right, so now we've gone in so much detail. We have the Transvaal and the Orange Free State, the mines. We have the Consolidated Goldfields holding company. Then we have the South Africa one. Then we have the Rhodesia. We have a couple more in different areas of Africa, okay, which has a concession of approximately the Konago Gold Mines Ltd, which has a concession of approximately 20 square miles in the Ashanti-Akan district on an authorized capital of 675,000 euros, not fully paid up, 7 million shares of first each issued out at 13.5 million euros, I guess. Shares. Actually, yeah, it's shares, sorry. A working profit of 110,000 euros was achieved from 86. Okay, so this is talking about classifications per ton of, and I don't really know what these things mean because I don't have enough information on that. In 1962, Konago Gold Mines Ltd informed the Ghana government that the operation of the Konago Gold Mine would become uneconomic after April 1965. Okay, so the Ghana government said that the operation would not be economic. Okay. The company were therefore contemplating ceasing operations just before that time. In view of the loss of employment that this would mean, the government decided to purchase the mine in order to provide continued employment for the Ghanaian employees. After protracted negotiation, a purchase price was made of 150,000 euros, was paid by the Ghana government, and the mine is now under the management of the state's Gold Mining Corporation. Okay, well, that's a good thing, but I wonder what it means to not be economical. Okay, because they were thinking about letting it go anyways at a certain point. Capitalized at 15 million euros, Consolidated Gold Mines made consolidated profits before tax of 6.8 million euros for the year to 1960-1961, with dividends absorbing 1.7 million euros. The year 1962 provided for Consolidated Goldfields the most profitable yet in its operations, resulting in a consolidated profit before tax of 7 million. While in the chairman's own words, another satisfactory feature of the accounts is that dividends and interest exceeded 5 million for the first time, euros. So Consolidated Goldfields' income comes largely from the specialist services which it provides to companies within its own group and those within its associated groups. Varying considerably in size, they number over 100, and the total market capitalization of those quoted on the stock exchange exceeded 170 million euros. At the end of the company's working year of 1962, it is by these means of investment and management that much larger incomes are built up than from the actual production of the mining and the producing of raw materials. That is why so many of the more important mining companies, not alone in Africa, but throughout the world, have coalesced into holding and investment concerns behind whom stand the most important figures in the banking and financial world. Okay, so what did we learn from that? Okay, we learned that it pays to basically have your grips on all of the industries and spread them out all over the world so you can fix prices and therefore make more profits and therefore pay each other because you are each other's customers, pay each other more and just make more money. That's basically what we learned. If you control the entire system, you can exploit it and you can make a whole lot of money. Okay, I think we're done with this chapter, so then let's just finish it. Here we have touched only on the bare bones of the consolidated goldfield skeletal structure, the flesh and brawn which clothe it are set in layers of rich fat that have created a huge cooperation bulge, smugly admired by the owner, but ominous to the lean, starved African observer, and probably also to their own populations. Because as they fix prices, we saw the example of the British government, doing some investigation of some of these price fixing, and then them because of these regulation, because basically they got caught, they had to then mix their phosphate with ammonia, right? So still the customer suffers because at this point you have least concentrated products, but at the end of the day, it's still the same. They could be, though. I think that some of this is hopeful because at the end of the day, they could be, pushed into making better deals, especially when you have a continent as big as Africa. With as many resources, because they will just increase the prices. But if they increase them too much, then you have, because they want to, of course, keep their stockholders happy and keep that profit margin as it was, because they get used to that. And this is very difficult to go back. At the same time, then they would have to deal with their people. And they have been getting away with a lot when it comes to their own people. But I think that this is part of the information that we need, because as citizens of the West, I imagine, or at least myself, as a citizen of the West, we need to know, all of the weaknesses. We need to know the main weakness. And I would even say that we know what the main weakness is. The main weakness is that their profits. They can't go without their profits. And they will do absolutely everything to get that. But, and that's why socialism is such a threat to them, because as soon as these resources are no longer accessible, then they have to, then the prices go up. Their profit shares get slimmer. You know what I'm saying? It's like, or they have to exploit more the citizens, the people that they're selling to, including the African nations and that sort of thing. So the only way you can do things, I think we just continue to go back to the same thing, is by taking it away from them, taking the resources away from them. They will fight for it, though. Okay, so let's watch a little video and give my again hydrates. What in the fudge? Why is this not? Give me 1 second. Let's fix this. Okay. Hopefully it works. Here we go. There we go. So they made a little, I know that we've seen with the Iran war, a lot of these little Lego videos. They made one for Africa, so I wanted us to hear it.
American, Listen close.
We are not your enemy.
We are not your enemy. We are the voice from Africa.
We come with no gun, no flag, only memory.
What your leaders did, they did not tell you.
We are here to tell you now.
Sit down and listen well.
They built the banks on our backs. They built the labs on our blood. They built the bombs from our soil. They built the empires from our bones. And they never told you a word.
What was stolen from black people?
The land,
The gold,
the bodies,
the names
the hands,
of Congolese children cut for rubber,
the cells,
of Henrietta
blacks taken in Baltimore,
the uranium from Shinkolobwe in Hiroshima,
the bronzes of Benin in London.
the truth, the truth.
They stole the truth from you too.
In 1441, the Portuguese came. 10 Africans taken to Prince Henry. In 1660, King James of England built the Royal African Company. He burned his initials on African children with hot iron. The De Wolf family of Rhode Island moved 10,000 of us. Senator James De Wolf built his fortune on it. JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, New York Life, Aetna Insurance. They wrote the policies on our bodies. They have admitted this Brown University is named for slave traders. Yale, Harvard, Princeton, built on the same trail. 12 million Africans put on the ships. 1.8 million died in the water. 388,000 brought to your country, American. Your banks still hold a mortgage on the bones of my ancestors.
This is on the record.
Read it yourself.
They built the banks on our backs, yeah. They built the labs on our blood, yeah. They built the bombs from our soil. They built the empires from our bones. And they never told you a word.
What was stolen from black people? The land, the gold, the bodies,
The names
the hands
of Congolese children,
cut for rubber, the cells of Henrietta
blacks taken,
in Baltimore,
the uranium,
from Shinkolobwe in Hiroshima,
the bronzes of Benin in London. The truth, the truth, the truth.
they stole the truth
They stole the truth
from you too. King Leopold of Belgium killed 10 million in the Congo for rubber. They cut the hands off children. The Casement report proved it in 1904. Germany, they committed genocide on the heroine. Nama from 1904. 80% died. Eugene Fisher trained Joseph Mengele. Their Britain ran concentration camps in Kenya. Castration, rape.
Yeah, they made one for Africa. I thought that was cool. All right, I think we can go back to the reading. Okay. So now we're reading about foreign investment in South African mining. I feel like we've done a little bit of this, but maybe we're going to go a little bit more in details. And I'm surprised that we didn't actually, the whole Oppenheimer thing was basically the Australian company and its African subsidiaries and that sort of thing. But maybe we'll go a little bit more deeper into it here. Okay, foreign investment in South African mining. So maybe. It has been estimated that over 50% of the foreign capital invested in Africa has been poured into South Africa. British investment probably total nearly 2.8 million or 2,800 million, and American investment closer to 840 million. A 1957 U.S. government survey of American overseas investment shows the single most profitable area was in the mining and smelting business of South Africa, whose profits are higher than from any comparable investment in the United States. So they're making more money than basically everybody and anybody and everybody, and they're doing it in South Africa. The high profits can be explained largely in the cheapness of African labor. So when you think about, how America became America, the country that we know today, and we think, it was made because of slavery, It was made because of slavery, not just the ones that happened in the United States, but also this that happened in Africa not too long ago. African labor. According to the 1962 Statistical Abstract of the United States, U.S. miners earn an average of $2.70 an hour, which is 27 times the amount earned by South African miners. Holy shit. Dominance in South Africa's economy is the Anglo-American De Beers Group, part of the empire of Harry Oppenheimer. Okay, so we didn't leave him behind. We're still digging into it, which extends into Southwest Africa and Zambia, and is linked with mining companies in many other African states. The value of the empire has been enhanced by the discovery that uranium can be produced from the residues and slimes which surround old gold mines. Okay, so they were able to make some discoveries, and now they can make double the money from one specific mine. Wonderful. It does not. We're talking about just miners in general. I don't think that they were talking about children, but who knows? Extraction of uranium from gold ores and slimes has brought South Africa into the world's leading place as a producer of uranium. The workings of slimes accumulated over the past 60 years, together with those from current gold production, is helping to prolong the life of many exhausted gold mines. At the end of the day, this is a pretty genius discovery. Too bad that the only people that are really profiting from are not the South African people, right? Because you have the gold mines, they have double the use for these mines. That's pretty awesome. Unfortunately, in this case, it does not benefit the people. In 1956, 8 million pounds of uranium oxide were produced in South Africa, providing exports valued at 39 million euros. This leaves out of account the quantities that go to the Atomic Energy Board of South Africa. Okay, the Atomic Energy Board, with whom several of the mines have contracts. Okay, the profit made from the production of uranium oxide is running ahead of that derived from gold extraction. Ooh, okay, so they're making more from the slimes than they are from the actual gold. In fact, the working profits derived from uranium extraction exceeded those derived from gold extraction on the 17 production mines taken together, and on 5 of them, they actually offset working losses incurred in the production of the gold. Harmony Gold Mining Company, Ltd., is one of the more important gold and uranium producing companies within the Anglo-American Consolidated Goldfields Maze of Interest. So again, we're back to the consolidated goldfields, and Harmony Gold is one of them. Its authorized capital of 5 million euros has been paid up to the amount of 4.5 million euros. Secretarial services and offices to the company are provided by Rand Mines Ltd. So now we have a different company, a company that gives executive, administrative, and technical services to the South African companies of the Central Mining Rand Mines and Group. So you always have to have some office space, some secretarial people. There's always a company that takes up that. Chairman of Harmony is P.H. Anderson, a deputy chairman of Rand Mines. Other directors in common are Messrs. R.E.M. Blakeway and N.W.S. Lewin. Chairman of Rand Mine is C.W. Engelhard, who is also chairman of Rand American Investment Ltd. And Patentsley has a watching brief for the United States investment, who more and more are infiltrated into primary materials extraction in Africa. Okay, all of Rand American 2.3 million shares or issued shares of €1 each are held by De Beers Investment Trust. Okay, so now we have De Beers Investment Trust owning some Rand American. A wholly owned subsidiary of Rand Selection Corporation. So De Beers is just part of Rand Selection, which is part of, I imagine, Rand American. Since the recent rejuggling of the Rand Group, Rand American owns nearly all the preference shares and the substantial interest in the issued ordinary shares of Central Mining and Investment Corporation. So now we have another mining company that Rand now owns, as well as a substantial interest in the issued ordinary capital of Rand Mine Ltd. The American link confirms the tie-up forming the Central Mining Rand Mines Group. All right. Consolidated Goldfields and Anglo-American cooperation interests converge in harmony, in which both have appreciable holdings. By the grace of the South African government, Harmony was able to acquire undermining and mineral rights over some 8,000 acres of land, as well as freehold ownership of farms covering approximately another 10,000 acres. These holdings being rather more than Harmony could cope with, it was found profitable to sell the rights to mine precious metals, two portions of its areas on lease until 1967. This right went to another Anglo-American concern, Virginia Orange Free State Gold Mining Company, Ltd. Harmony's remuneration for this friendly gesture to a sister company was a minimum $3 million, payable quarterly free of interest. Nice. Virginia Orange brings us once more into the contract with the American marriage of South American mining. Our first example being Mr. C.W. Engelhard, an American Democrat who, as president of Engelhard Industries, refiners of precious metals in the United States, sought after steady supplies to keep his plants working. He found them in South Africa. Okay, so now we have a politician in the U.S. who owns a company that now wants to get interest in South Africa, where he linked up with Oppenheimer and later branched out into baser metals and other fields of profit. Mr. Engelhard, following Mr. Oppenheimer's inspiration, has also found a niche in the Canadian, Australian, and Colombian mining industries and distributes his finished goods in Europe through companies established in Paris, Rome, and London. Mr. Engelhard's qualities, as well as his services to the expansion of American interests abroad, are recognized in his membership of the U.S. Foreign Policy Association. Okay, so he's part of the U.S. Policy Association. I imagine that he probably has a say on how all of this is, all these policies make his investments all legal, I imagine. With Virginia Orange, we are brought near to more considerable American influence than Mr. Engelhard is able singly to produce. By the association of the powerful Connecticut Copper Corporation with this gold mining and uranium extraction company, Connecticut had interest in Virginia Orange, which is passed over together with those it owned in the Maris Pruitt Orange Free State Gold Mining Company, Ltd., to the reorganized concern formed in 1961 to acquire those interests. The new company bears the combination title Virginia Maris Pruitt Investment Ltd., and the rearrangement will enable it to fully fulfill an outstanding uranium contract with the Atomic Energy Board of South Africa. Mr. Engelhard is a member of the Virginia Maris Pruitt Board by Virginia of the holding directly bought into it by his Engelhard Industries of Southern Africa Ltd. And his connections with Rand Mines Ltd. And Anglo-American Corporation, which together with another two associates, Centramic South Africa Ltd. And Anglo Transvaal Consolidated Investment Company Ltd. form the parties to the new company. All right. So now he's a member of this mixture of these two companies, the board of these two companies, and yeah, and then he has his connections that we already had discussed earlier. Okay. Financiers and dealers in mining and other properties in the Transvaal, Anglo-Transvaal has a subsidiary, Anglo-Vaal Rhodesian Exploration Company, which operates in northern and southern Rhodesia. Its mineral prospects include coal, copper, chrome, and nickel, with capital authorized at 4.3 million euros, not fully paid up. Anglo-Transvaal is operating and on an unsecured short-term loan of 1 million from National Finance Corporation of South Africa. So now we have the banks jumping in, a private organization with which Anglo-American corporations, friends of the international investment world, are closely associated, including the House of Morgan, which has a substantial financial interest in Connecticut copper. Among Connecticut's extensive mining engagement in Africa is a 30% investment in Anglo-Vaal Rhodesian. Yeah, so now we have him getting a loan from a bank where he has his buddies, and they're obviously able to give him some good interest or good arrangement, or just approve something that maybe he wouldn't have been approved for. Who knows? And now the banks have, investment in these companies as well, in these, raw materials. Okay, so as you see, we're going into a lot of details, and I do like them. And I think when I go through and do my notes and I kind of build this pyramid, it gives us an idea of how these things work. Again, a lot of this is really just for learning purposes, because we already know that a lot of this stuff has changed. But our goal here is, and the reason that we're reading all these details, is so that we can know how things like this work. Even if we don't understand, the ins and outs and a lot of the, even the details in reference to the resources and that sort of thing, it's good for us to know, that these people work together. They have dinner together, lunch together, become friends. They're made board members, invest in a certain area. They become entangled with each other. They give each other better prices. So, when you're dealing with these companies as an outsider, you shouldn't expect to be treated the same way as when you see them doing business with each other, because a lot of times they're actually doing business with themselves. When you really kind of go back up to the pie, the top of the pyramid. Sorry. Okay. Primed by Morgan friends, Connecticut knows how to take care of its manifold concerns. Hence, as consideration for cessation of its interest in the Virginia and Marisbrut mines, is to receive an amount of 3.5 million euros payable in 5 annual installments. This does not, however, sever Connecticut's connection with these valuable Oppenheimer Engelhard properties. So now we have the Engelhard name attached to the Oppenheimers, so because of their close relationships and the lands that they kind of help each other manage, I guess. For the American Copper Corporation will be entitled to an interest of 20% up to a maximum amount of 2.5 million euros on any of Virginia Marisbrut's net surplus that may accrue after the installment payments on the cash consideration of 3.5 million euros have been fully net. This entitlement, however, will be forfeited in the event of Connecticut taking up at a later date from the members of Virginia Marisbrut 20% of the then issued share capital. So if I'm understanding this correct, they're charged a specific amount of interest, but they don't have to pay that interest if they then issue share capitals. If they then issue share capital. So then they sell their part of their company, and therefore they don't have to pay that interest. And therefore now you have more entanglement of ownership of all of these different things. It's genius. Okay. These are the torturous means by which financial cliches are held. It is obvious that the way is being kept wide open for Connecticut's re-entry into the heart of the company. Meantime, it can still feast at the table. I'm going to just read that last sentence of the previous paragraph again real quick. This entitlement, however, will be forfeited in the event of Connecticut's taken up at a later date from the members of Virginia, Mayor's Brew 20%. Yeah, okay. Yes. I read that correctly. So Connecticut's, basically the goal is to get them to purchase those, the Virginia Mayor's Pruitt, 20% of that company. So they'll just pretend, they're charging him interest, but it's really just another agreement. It's just another partnership situation. It's just another, entanglement. Connecticut is a foremost copper producer in the United States, whose share on the futures market are valued by knowing operators at around $1.48 billion, even though its present capital of 11 million shares of no nominal or par value issue out of 12 million authorized have been given to stated value of only 74 million. The processor of copper mines, concentrating mills, smelters, refineries, fabrication works, and railways, it has smelting agreements for much of its ores with American Smelting and Refining Company, with whom it has two subsidiaries in common. American Smelting is a producer itself of copper, as well as of silver, lead, zinc, and gold in the United States, Mexico, Canada, and Peru. Its interests extend to Australia, Nicaragua, and it has arrangements with Cerro Corporation, Newmont Mining Corporation, and Phelps Dodge Corporation, all of whom have substantial investment in South Africa mining projects, including the Sumab Corporation of Southwest Africa. Okay, I will be honest, I'm starting to lose track of these companies. All I'm starting to hear now is just more companies owning more companies in different countries, and then tracing it back to South Africa. All right, the American chemical industry enters the Connecticut field of operations. Okay, so we're back to Connecticut fields of operation. We already know that they have a bunch of companies all over different countries now, through a joint venture with the important Allied Chemical and Dye Corporation. The Allied Connecticut Titanium Corporation is to produce and sell a titanium metal and has put up a pilot plant. A further breakthrough has been made by the acquisition of 25% in Western Phosphates Incorporated, 7.3% in the common stock of Molybdenum Corporation of American, 50% in Garfield Chemical and Manufacturing. So now they're going into titanium, so a different raw material. And this is Connecticut. So if we were looking at a diagram, we've deviated a little bit from our parent company, our Australian company that has then eventually some connection after going all over the United States and England, came back to South Africa. In South Africa, we have some deviation. We have an American politician that came, bought some land, started doing his own thing, started mixing with the Oppenheimers. Then we have Connecticut came into the game at some point during after that. They have ownership in different countries now of different companies, and now they have now they're doing some more business, and now they've decided to go into titanium. We have changed resources a couple other times as well, so or raw material. anyways, I'm just trying to kind of like, keep staying up to date with all the things that are happening with all of these different companies, which is the whole point that Kwame is trying to tell us with this breakdown. Is he's trying to tell us that this is a fucking maze of basically connection of all of these different companies, which he probably describes in earlier chapters as monopolies. Oligarchy is kind of my own interpretation of what it is, but basically it's just like all of these companies basically intermingling, owning everything. And for the countries or anybody that doesn't have a foot in the door, for example, to kind of get screwed, because they all work together. They create these allied ships and syndicates and groups or whatever they want to call it. The Allied Connecticut Titanium Corporation is to produce and sell titanium metal and has put up a pilot plant. A further breakthrough has been made. Okay, so we went over some of these percentages. In Molybdenum Corporation of America and 50% in Garfield Chemical and Manufacturing Corporation, there has been a branching out into mineral exploration in Brazil and Mexico with 2 subsidiaries, Ken Rand Pesquisas Minerals SA, 60% Connecticut owned, 60%, and SIA Kenmex SA, respectively, another subsidiary, Brandon Copper CO, works a copper property in Chile. Okay, so we are all over the world. So I don't know why he started this by telling us this Oppenheimer is the king of South Africa. Maybe he is, but he definitely has his fingers in companies all over the world. Expansion into Canada is by way of Quebec Columbia Ltd, formed by Connecticut with Molybdenum Corporation of America to investigate a Colombian property near Montreal. And Quebec Iron and Titanium Corporation, owned 2/3 by Connecticut and 1/3 by New Jersey Zinc Company. This latter company is linked up with the Great Oil Organization Texaco Incorporated in a joint enterprise, Texaco Zinc Mineral Corporation, for the construction and operation of a uranium processing mill in Utah. A uranium mine in Utah was bought in 1956, and the mill began operations in 1957, also treating ores from other mines. The uranium concentrate produced is being sold to the United States Atomic Energy Commission under contract. The New Jersey, Connecticut venture in Quebec Iron and Titanium is going to prove extremely valuable, as titanium is a metal that does not melt at supersonic speeds and is accordingly in high demand for the use of jet aircraft. Greece also figures in the Connecticut sphere of interest, where is 95% owned Ken Batstos Mining Company Ltd works asbestos properties in West Africa. It has a 76% holding in Tin and Associated Metals Ltd, operating a Colombian and tin property in northern Nigeria. Colombian from this mine provides most of the world's present production. Okay, so what do you guys understand from all of this? Like, what are you getting out of all of this thing? Because one thing that I'm getting is that a lot of these companies are made up, right? You have the raw resource, and then you just have a bunch of holding companies here, another company over there. You eat up another company over there. You kill the competition over here. You create other subsidiary. You have another holding company that holds those companies. You then buy into the competition wherever. wherever things are happening organically, you buy them up, you eat it all up, but you call it different things. You keep holding companies in different areas. You own a percentage. This company owns a little bit of this one, this one. So at the end of the day, there just is this cannibalistic, system that even if you do come into business and grow a company, if you are a competition, you will be eaten up by, you have to sell. This is why a lot of times I see, these, young inventors or young business people that produce a certain resource or a certain thing that they've invented. And, as soon as it's proven to be profitable, is gone. They're paid a few million, they become rich or whatever, and the company is eaten up by somebody that's already established. Whether or not they continue to produce it or not, it doesn't even matter, because all that matters is that you kill the competition and you keep control and you keep the system working in the way that is the most profitable. If that company and that thing that is invented or produced does not profit, does not help with the system and that you have already built and the trajectory that you've already put together, then you're just not going to produce it. You're just killing it so that it doesn't mess with the system. And this is this oligarchy system where it's just like these few people, these few companies, and it looks like a lot. It looks like a lot, but it's just like them building all of these companies that basically hold other companies and that sort of thing. So I just wonder if you have any thoughts on, this whole system, because we've gone into a lot of details. And I think a lot of these details are not things that we're probably going to remember all of the details, but I think it's just important for us to know the example, like I said before. I'm going to go ahead and take another break. I'm taking more breaks now. I think it's maybe because of the dense level of the topics that we're experiencing right now. We're reading a lot of details, and that is hard to consume. All right, so let's go ahead and watch another video, and I can hydrate.
The call from Washington was no minerals, no health aid. Zambia's response was no deal. Zambia has called Washington's bluff by ignoring Donald Trump's April 30, 2026 ultimatum to sign the United States health deal. The Zambian government rejected the proposed health aid agreement valued at more than $1 billion because it found the terms unacceptable. It said it opposed the deal because Washington attempted to tie health funding to access to the country's critical minerals. Zambia's Foreign Minister, Molambo Haimbe, said some of the deal's data sharing terms will violate Zambians' right to privacy. A separate critical minerals deal tied to the health agreement has also stalled because the U.S. wants its companies to receive preferential treatment in Zambia's mining sector. The Zambian government insists that health funding must remain separate from any critical minerals agreement. Despite repeated calls from the U.S., Zambia delayed finalizing the MOU, a move that U.S. Ambassador Michael Gonzalez described as a failure to engage. Health advocates in Zambia also raised concerns that health aid was being used to secure mining sector concessions. They also criticized the 10-year one-way data sharing requirement. Zambia has made it clear that it will not accept any deal that undermines its national sovereignty. Ghana and Zimbabwe have also rejected the U.S. health deal over concerns about data sharing. The U.S. claims its global health strategy is the Trump administration's new approach to foreign aid. In practice, it is an exploitative arrangement that pressures African countries to trade access to their critical minerals for health care aid, ultimately serving the interest of the American empire. For the spearhead, Kwame.
Okay, yeah, I think we talked about that before. Yeah, we talked a little bit about how the U.S. is doing these predatory and contracts to extract, and it's all in the name of aiding. But this is not new. It's the only thing that is new is maybe the public, the fact that it's made public, and that some of these countries are like actually growing balls and actually saying something about it. And the media, that their media and social media is helping the rest of us know that this stuff is going on. But it's not new. It has been going on for quite some time. Okay, let's go back to the reading. Okay. Our examination into Harmony Gold Mining Company Ltd. has led us a long way round the world and into realms of power and prodigious wealth. Okay, so he's summing it up here. So basically the same thing that we were saying before, that they're all over the world. This seems inevitable once we begin to trace the external interest that intertwines Africa's exploitation with that of many other parts of the world. Coming back to Harmony, it is impressive to note that this company, having a gold production plant capable of dealing with 200,000 tons of ore a month, also boasts a uranium extraction plant whose capacity is 120,000 tons monthly. This plant began operations in April 1955. Attached to it is a sulfuric acid plant with a daily capacity of 120 tons, which started producing in January 1960. The uranium extraction plant was erected under arrangements made with the Export-Import Bank of Washington, USA, and the UK Ministry of Supply. A loan was obtained from the Atomic Energy Board of South Africa for the entire capital costs of the plant, exclusive of the capacity extension from 80,000 to 120,000 tons monthly. The company is under contract with the Combined Development Agency, as well as with the UK authority alone, to supply various quantities of uranium at fixed prices, under arrangements which will allow it, without incurring extra costs, to cover by June 1965 the capital expenditure on plants. During the year ended 30 June 1961, Harmony milled a total of 2.2 million tons of ore, which yielded 857,000 ounces of fine gold, providing a working revenue of 10 million euros, almost 11, with a working profit of 4 million euros. 2 million tons of slimes treated yielded 974 pounds of uranium oxide, given an estimate working profit from uranium pyrites and acid of 2.6 million euros. Accounts for the following 6 months to the end of 1961 showed that the 2 million tons of ore milled resulted in a working revenue from gold of 4 million euros. Treatment of 2 million tons of slimes produced 953. Okay, I'm just going to skip some of these numbers. All this can be regarded as most satisfactory for shareholders. That's what we needed to know. Messrs. Engelhard and Oppenheimer must bear a special regard for their friends in the Export-Import Bank for their ready aid in this venture. In a country that makes a mockery of human rights for its non-white inhabitants, such ease of assistance, if extended to the less developed new nations of the continent by an international banking organization, would help lessen the gap that the developed countries are forever depreciating, but which, by these stealthy means, they serve to widen between the have and the have-not countries. Yeah, so basically, after they have their plan, they can just put it through without having any pushbacks or doubts or not getting approved for this or that, because they own everything. So as long as you own everything, you will be able to move in ease. But for those that want to grow, for those that want to do, for the countries themselves, when they want to borrow, when they want to produce, when they want to, have their own empires or whatever, it's impossible because the empire was already created, and therefore the people that have the power will continue to keep the power, and they will make it so that you cannot get the power. So you can't. This is what when we were reading about Gabon and the new administration that was voted in by like 90 plus percentage of the voters, and they took out the bootlickers that they had previously, that basically did everything that the French wanted them to do. And now you have this new administration, kind of putting limitations on the French and that sort of thing. This is why a lot of the public and the media of, the African nations, and that one in particular, are saying, well, you're doing something, but you are still working within the system that they created. This is the system that they created. This of basically owning everything, having their friends make it easy for them. When it comes to borrowing and lending, you do that, but you're actually buying into certain companies, and you're all just becoming entangled into the same thing. So therefore, there is no pushback, there is no hardship, there is no real negotiation. All there is you doing whatever it is that you wanted to do. All these companies are just shells. They just create the illusion of competition. It's like how PepsiCo owns 45% of all the other drinks on the market, even Starbucks. It's all parasitic and predatory. Capitalism requires they be that way. Yeah. Basically, and this is not new. This has been happening, and so for I don't know if this is the result that Kwame is going to come to eventually, but what I'm getting from what he's teaching us up to this point is that the only way is to not be part of this system. There is no winning in this system. The system was not made for you. The system already has its players. The game has started. It already has its players. You can't jump in. You can't tap in to the game that has already been created because it was not created for you. So, this capitalistic game has been made since after World War II, right? The American, went in and bought up a bunch of stuff and got more power over the colonial system that was there before it. And it's been working this way this whole entire time. 1964 was just when he was starting to notice this stuff, but now we already know that it is much worse. So you can't improve upon, and you can't improve yourself upon. You have to get the fuck out of it. So yes, I totally agree with you. I know that many people, in the real world, because we're talking a lot of, our own perspective, and we're being radicals right now in this conversation. But I know that a lot of people who want to be mild or, neo, whatever it is that they are, will say that you have to vote harder or vote more, or, you have to protest and all this stuff. But like, what has that gotten us? What they have done instead is made it more difficult to protest. You can't do, everything is illegal. You can't stop them from doing the thing that they're doing, because if not, you're going to be beaten. They're going to, send smoke bombs at you. They're going to water hose you. They're going to beat the shit out of you. They're going to drag you into prison, because they have laws against basically protesting. So what do? We had the women in the U.S., we had the Women's March so that we don't get our abortion rights taken away from us. What happened? We got our abortion rights taken off. We saw the video of George Floyd, and we did the protest for that. And what did that give us? Nothing. Maybe just a few little policies here and there that didn't really make much of a difference. We have the No Kings protest. That, to me, it's just a networking, fun Saturday activity. I don't think anything has changed. So then what do you do? What do you do? And we're not going to answer that question here. And I am not instigating anything either when it comes to at all. What I'm trying to do is educate ourselves so that we know what the system is. And so far, it's fucked. It's a fucked system, and it's rigged, and it's been working this way since before, most of us were born. So how do you fix this? I'm going to take another little break. Sorry for all the breaks today. We're going to watch one more video. Let's see if I have something. All right, I don't know what this one is, but let's watch one more, and then we will finish off with reading. All right.
President, do you have anything to say to the white minority in Rhodesia?
I don't know what I can say. It's very difficult what to say.
Thanks.
We mean it when we say that we want to establish non-racial societies. The whites in Southern Africa have laid down the conditions under which they will live in Africa. And their condition is that they must dominate. And I'm saying on that condition, really, they have no future in Africa. This is a condition which inevitably puts them in confrontation with the majority of the people of Africa. But if they accept to live in Africa on the basis of equality, they ask for nothing that a human being anywhere does not ask, then there is no reason why they shouldn't live in Africa just like anybody else. A large number, a majority of that minority does not accept majority rule. And if we agree that majority rule is coming in any case, these people will live in any case, and therefore better.
Yes, that's exactly what we were talking about before. They're going to leave anyways. So just get it over with, right? It's just like the one company that we were talking about when I was going through my notes, where we were seeing that it was the U.S. Steel Company, and they were, the sixth biggest manufacturing or infrastructure company in the U.S. and like the fourth biggest in some other, maybe it was manufacturing, I don't remember, but so they were huge. And then I was like looking up to see like, where are they today? Because like they were just banking, and they were banking because they were extorting and, basically extracting and doing it at basically predatory, by predatory means. So they got, all of these profits. Where are they now? They were eaten up. They were eaten up by another company. They lost, and then we have Fiat, the car company as well. So we had, which also eaten up by other companies. This is capitalistic system is predatory. It eats itself up. So, if it's going to do that anyways, we don't have to feel bad. We don't have to feel bad. Like you lose everything. Okay. You lose everything, because if it's you or me, and it's not even you or me, because really all we're talking about is like profits or the people, or the people being able to survive, eat, have the basic needs that they need met. It's either the people or the shareholders making like a fuck ton of profits. So it's not even like, you know, like it's not equal. So yes, fuck them. You know what I'm saying? Yes, and she's talking about obviously a different topic. She's talking about the actual white colonial people that that were in Africa, and they didn't want to give up their governmental power because they wanted to be a minority rule. Yeah, so then that's what she's talking about. So she's talking about a different topic, but same thing, fuck them.
That they leave now, then that they fight and fight and fight and leave at the end of a long and terrible war. A minority will stay, and usually when this minority which stays does not ask for special guarantees, they stay as ordinary human beings.
Yes.
What is your reaction to the view that white people should be given special financial and other guarantees to stay in Zimbabwe?
I think it is absurd. I think it's absurd.
Mr. President, do you have...
the audacity of even asking that question is the thing, right? Like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Who gives a shit? Yeah. And I think that's the same attitude that probably Haiti and some other countries were also, supposed to take. Like we've talked about it before, where we were saying they had to pay back, the French for them losing their fucking slaves to in a war. Like, you fucking lost. Fuck you. Go home. But they needed to do that so that they can continue to be part of the world economy. You know what? Fuck that shit. And again, it's a little bit difficult when you're an island by yourself. I mean, you're not, because you have Dominican Republic right on the other side, of which I am, a citizen of. But and I know that there's difficulties there. But I wonder how many years it would have taken for everybody, the world, to just get over the fact that they decided not to pay the French, and then they were able to jump in the world economy anyways, versus how long it took them to fucking pay them and be in poverty. So I just wonder, like, what the difference of that is. If you would just to be like, fuck you, we're not gonna pay you shit. You lost. Go home, motherfuckers. And you decided to just work on your own country with your own resources, and then maybe just do some sneaky deals here and there with other countries, maybe even with the Dominican government that's right next door. Whenever you needed certain things that you don't have in your country, and that sort of thing. Or like with Cuba or some other island around, you just do some sneaky deals, because you have to work within you have to create your own goddamn system, because you can't work within their system. But of course, I'm not the president, and I'm not a great big fighter of liberation of Haiti, so I don't know exactly what the intricacies were and why they made that decision to actually abide by this, like, paying back, this trying to be, to keep the decorum and to be actually seen as a world, respectable, whatever the fuck. But just from what I see now, I would have just been like two middle fingers. Even though the CARICOM didn't exist yet, if all the Caribbean nations banded together at that time, it'd have been a different story. I think so. Yeah, and I think we've also have been experiencing a lot of propaganda within, because different countries, we have different parent colonizer countries that have propagandized us differently as well, to make us think the way that they want us to think. And I'm just talking about as a Dominican with our Spanish overlords, making us with this, like, just like Brazil with different levels of hierarchy depending on our mixture, on our mixture into Spanish versus African and whatever, which is a poison to the brain. But it's something that a lot of Dominicans were propagandized, and therefore, creates this level of racism against the country that had mixed less because they kicked the motherfuckers out. So there's a lot of intricacies. There's a lot of difficulties and complications that probably, were part of the reason that the Haitians decided to do what they did. But, they fought back. And that was also scary. And I'm sure the West was keeping a close eye on them. So they were probably not going to be able to get away with much because they were a threat. Just like anybody that, again, does not abide by the system is a threat. Anyways, let's jump into to the reading. See if we can get how much of it we can get done in the last 20 minutes. Oh, I just wanted to let you know that I made some emotes so that you can use them now. You can tell me if they're shit. They're all created by Canva's AI system. So you can take a look at them. I don't even know if you have access to them yet. I just created them yesterday. And and I don't really know how this works entirely, but if you have access to it, if you can look it up, then you can. Yeah. Hey, listen, if you can make some, then you can send them my way. I'll give you credit, but I am not an artist, so I just made AI do it. But yes, you can use them if you have access to them. Again, I don't fucking know. I'm just letting you know. You can look for them. If you find them, then you can use them. All right. If you don't like them, if they suck, just let me know. If you can make better ones, I will take it into consideration. All right, let's go back into the book and see how much we can get done. Okay, so Anglo-American Cooperation Limited. All right, so this sounds like the name of an actual corporation. Okay, the biggest octopus in the Oppenheimer Sea of operations is probably the Anglo-American Cooperation Ltd. Its investments are on a threefold scale, and their list of the main ones convey but the barest idea of their very considerable range. These are more or less direct participations and do not include the more intricate holdings held through or in common with subsidiaries and others in a more far-reaching extension of interest. Principally in mining, they nevertheless branch out into processing, transport, and communications, land holdings, and estate, forestry, and timber industry, as well as into hydroelectric power schemes like that of the Rhodesia-Congo Border Power Corporation. Okay, so these are easier to see. This company is a bit easier to see because it's not so much of a holding company. Yay! You saw. Okay, so you can use it. Awesome. Yeah, okay, cool. Let me know if I should change any of the ones that are already there. Yeah. So it's embarrassingly my ideas. Okay. Gold, uranium, iron, asbestos, and coal mines are among the cooperation's most notable undertakings in South Africa, forming the solid foundation of which the Oppenheimer empire stands. Again, a lot of these companies are just a little bit more front-facing. Now we're kind of looking at what and who they are, but basically they have their fingers on all the things that we have mentioned up until this point. Copper mining is its principal occupation in the Rhodesias, though it exploits also lead, zinc, and cadmium, and has the distinction of being the only producer of coal in Rhodesia, where it controls the Wankie Colliery. Through associated companies, its interest spread out into Tanganyika, Uganda, and the Congo, Angola, Mozambique, West Africa, and even the Sahara and North Africa, as can be seen by this list of direct investments. Okay, I'm not going to name all of them. Finance and investment companies. Again, all of these companies basically are owning things like copper mining. They're owning things in all of these different African countries. So kind of have their hands all over Africa, and it is a fucking big list. Holy shit. Okay, then we have the diamond mines. Again, these are the companies that are a bit more visible. Then we have the coal mines companies, because they're actually doing the actual work. They're mining things. They're doing some transportation. We have the copper mines. We have the gold mines. They're all over Africa. We have the other mining. Okay. Prospecting. So here they're figuring out where the minerals, mines, the resources are located. Industrial and sundry companies. Okay, so they're building shit. Land and estate. So they own a bunch of shit. So that's a lot of companies. That is a lot of companies. And I think he could have just told us there's a shitload of companies all over that do all of these things, which he actually did. And I think now I'm starting to realize that the reason that he lists them is for us to physically see with our eyes the list of companies that it is. And that kind of does something to your psyche where you're just like, yeah, I mean, it's not just 3 or 4. And it's not just 1 or 2 industry. They have their fingers in everything, everywhere. And that's what that list looks like. And that we're still just talking about the Oppenheimer and the one specific company that we started with. What is it called? Holy smoke. That list is on. Yep, it's right here. The Anglo-American Corporation Limited. Yeah, okay. So we're still talking about that company and everything that it owns. Okay. All right. Okay. It is interesting to know among the companies, too, that are engaged in the enlistment of native labor, namely Anglo Collieries Recruiting Organization, Ltd., and Hanson's Native Labor Organization, Ltd. Recruiting labor for the South African mines has always been an absorbing problem in connection with which there long ago grew up an efficient organization for importing workers, not only from the reserves of South Africa itself, but also from the protectorates, the Rhodesias and Nyasaland. There are long-standing arrangements with the authorities of the Portuguese colonies, particularly Mozambique, for the recruitment of African labor for work in the mines of South Africa. And I wonder how much human rights are entrenched in these companies. I also wonder how much abuse is there. And I also wonder how much military and militants are there. And I wonder how much of it is actually voluntary. These are things that I wonder. Enforcement of apartheid through the establishment of Bantustans, such as that recently gone through in the Transkei, will force the chiefs under inducement to supply increasing numbers of local men for the mines. Okay, all right, I don't wonder it anymore. I don't wonder it. They basically let us know the chiefs are under inducement to supply the local men for the mines. Okay, there is now a plan to stop the employment of workers from Zambia, Rhodesia, and Malawi, and even from the protectorates. It may well be thought that these people will be infected with the disease of nationalism and hence add fuel to the fire of unrest that has been lit in South Africa itself. It is significant that these Mozambique Africans are still to be allowed the privilege of enriching South Africa's mine owners, still to be allowed, by the way. That's a wonderful language. Enrich South African mine owners by their oil, not least among them Anglo-American Corporation. This company was incorporated in 1917 to draw together a number of mining investments and industrial companies already controlled by Mr. Harry Oppenheimer, and to bring them into tighter organization with such other interests as Mr. C.W. Engelhard, chairman of Rand Mines, Connecticut Copper Corporation, and other associates. As the guardian of these interests, Anglo-American acts as technical manager and secretary to the extensive number of mining and investment companies falling within the wide perimeter. In its executive, administrative, and secretarial capacity, it also arranges the financial life of the many enterprises coming under its care. The list given indicates only the barest bones of Anglo-America's multifarious interests, and if we were to examine them in detail, we should find ourselves reaching into a most tangled complex of arteries and sinews. Many of the undertakings are not only important in themselves, but have involvements which weave together the mining, industrial, and financial world of Africa with that of the rest of the world. Such organizations such as Rand Selection Corporation, Union Corporation, Rokana Corporation Ltd., and certain others participate in a self-perpetuating and exclusive ensemble. Interacting and interpenetrating of interests is a predominant feature, emphasizing the monopolistic nature of the African mining industry, whose leaders are the powerful arbiters of the continent's industrial growth, especially south of the Sahara. This is not difficult to understand how, from this position, they and their European and American associate and financial backers wield a preponderant influence upon the policies of their governments in relation to the African scene. So they not only own all of these different companies and all of these different aspects of the companies, stand in decisive boardrooms, basically control all of these industries, but they also, help shape the governments of the European and Western, the American countries, to make sure that they benefit in that sense as well. So same people, that exploit the African, the South American, the Asian, go back and exploit their own people as well. What they do to them, they will do to us. A look, for instance, at Rand Selection Corporation Ltd. brings us at once upon one of the principal arms of Anglo-American Corporation in the working of its vast empire. Rand immediately brings to mind the vision of fever, diamond, and gold rushes that followed in the wake of the young Cecil Rhodes and his brother adventures in the late 1870s. Rhodes' quarrel with the Boers was over the fight to penetrate the interior to get the gold of the Witwatersrand. His political leadership was assumed to make himself king of the mining wealth that had been discovered. All right, so basically he has a quarrel. He wants to dominate in an industry. He's in the politics, and he is trying to make himself king. I I know, I know. I've been trying to grow up. There's been many of those words that I have. I think my childish brain still gets tickled, but I've been focused on on continuing to be an adult. It was according to a committee set up in the Cape to examine Rhodes' part in the famous Jameson raid in his capacity as controller of the three great joint stock companies, the British South African Company, the De Beers Consolidated Mines, and the Gold Fields of South Africa. He directed and controlled the combination which rendered such a proceeding as the Jameson raid possible. So he devised some type of scheme, got into a bunch of other companies and, basically won the control. Something called the Jameson raid, which I imagine we can know a little bit more. I never grew up. Well, if I laugh at all the time, you've seen, I think when we first started the book, there was a couple of times that they used the word penetrate. Such an idiot. The word penetrate, and both times I was smirking and just becoming an idiot. But since then, the word has been said quite a bit of times. So, I had to eventually just be like, okay, you're an adult. Calm down. The Jameson raid finished Rhodes politically in South Africa. It was then he turned to what is now Rhodesia, where he made the British South African Company the power in the land that it has been ever since. Okay, so Rhodes actually got fucked. That's what it was? Hold on. So he was... Who was our guy? Look, for instance, at Rand Selection Corporation brings at once the principal arms of Anglo-American Corporation and Rand immediately brings to mind the Vision of Fever Diamond. Cecile Rhodes. Okay. Yeah. So it is him that we're talking about. We're talking about Rand and then the Rhodes family. Okay. So Rhodes got fucked. Okay. It was then he turned to what is now Rhodesia, where he made the British South Africa Company the power in the land that it has been ever since. Nor has the control of political affairs by all the great mining companies abated in any way since then. Rather, has it intensified until they are the powers which control the direct affairs, not in Africa alone, but by their integration with other formidable combinations in Europe and America. They exercise great influence in these continents also, and hence internationally. Yeah, once they get their claws into the power, once they get it, I mean, we've already kind of read through that. They're not just focused on the, where they get the most profit. They're really interested in power in general, and they'll do that from anywhere and to anyone. De Beers and Goldfields remain. The intervening years have naturally seen an extension of the opening up of mines and their exploitation, accompanied by a constant adaptation of their financial arrangements. Goldfields, head of vast organization of its own, De Beers has come within the periphery of Rand Selection Corporation, but still controls within its own group of companies the output and distribution of most of the world's diamonds. Yeah, I mean, we had Rhodes come in trying to do some things, got fucked. He did some great things somewhere else, but the corporation monster just keeps on growing, keep on growing. It doesn't matter who it runs over. If you get run over and you're able to survive somewhere else, that's okay. I don't care. We're not looking at you anymore, as long as you're not in my shit. And by the way, eventually we're going to get to your shit as well, because we want everything. In its own right, Rand Selection owns around 14,890 acres of freehold property in some of the richest mining areas of South Africa. A number of townships have been laid out by the company in which it has leasehold rights. of a high value. Certain of its rights are secured by a 92% interest in South African Townships Mining and Finance Corporation Ltd. and its wholly owned subsidiaries African Gold and Base Metals Holding Ltd, Cecilia Park Ltd, and Dewhurst Farms Ltd. They need to kick all these mother effers out of the country. Okay, we're gonna end here. Let's go ahead and put our mark. Hello. We'll put our mark here. There we go. And we'll pick up here tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow, Saturday. We'll pick up here tomorrow. And I will have some fresh. I'll put in the notes that we went over on the Discord right now, so you guys can review, and we'll pick up here tomorrow with more of this fucking shit. All right, see ya.